Hey, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be discussing kind of some more about scripture, and in particular I'm going to be discussing the spiritual and, terrestrial distinction that Paul gives in 1 Corinthians 15. So, Paul is interested in kind of discussing what the end of days will be like, right? Christianity is inherently an apocalyptic religion. It has been from the beginning. Jesus was an apocalyptic preacher. Paul was an apocalyptic missionary, you can say. And Christianity has always been about apocalyptic predictions. Now, Paul, as an apocalyptic minister, he wants to talk about what the end of days will be like. Paul believed that the end of days were going to be very, very soon. He believed that he probably wouldn't live. He either the end of days would happen before he was dead or very soon after he was dead, which informs why he doesn't want people to marry unless they have to. Regardless. So, Paul is interested in determining the spiritual and celestial body. Now, what does this mean? Well, a lot of commentators wrongly think that what Paul means is just, it's like our body, like right now. And then when we, end of days happens, we'll just get our body back. It's the same body. We're just like, it's just not in the terrestrial world. That's not what Paul meant at all. This is a terrible post-Enlightenment modernist reading that completely distorts not only the context of Second Temple Judaism and what they believed. Two, not only distorts what Paul literally says in the writing. So this is like not even like looking into the speculation of what he could have meant. Quite literally, it is not what it means. A lot of people don't like this distinction because it's a little scary, it's a little Gnostic, it's a little mystical. But if you have actually read Paul's writings, you will know that Paul is mystical. Paul is Gnostic, right? Because obviously, anyone who is talking about something like eschatology, a general resurrection, is going to be mystical. So, what Paul means by spiritual body, he doesn't mean like a ghostly form or like some sort of immaterial entity. Paul says that we will inherit the body of angels. Paul says we will be made like the stars. Paul says we will inherit a spiritual body. So what does all this mean? Well, these are all synonyms. The body of angels, okay. The body of stars. Well, if we look at Second Temple Judaism, the belief was that the literal stars in the sky, those are run by angels. Either, some people believed, they were angels, or angels ran them. Now, this understanding is most seen in Paul's discussion of powers and principalities. You'll see him use these terms. A lot of people think that he means earthly things. He doesn't. No, he doesn't. Paul doesn't mean earthly things. Paul means spiritual and angelic beings. And not just angelic beings that we would understand them. Not just demons in the way we understand them. But like, it's really hard to explain. It's not demons. It's not angels. It's evil powers that exist, but they're super shaky. Like, we don't really know, like, what these evil powers are. I don't think Paul knows. I think the whole point is that they're just, like, evil powers that exist. Anyways, I'm getting off track. So, the point being that the spiritual body is not like an immaterial form. It's not like a ghostly figure. The spiritual body is physical in a particular sense. The same way angels are physical. If we look at how angels are depicted in the Bible, and I don't mean the modernist, scholastic, Roman Catholic interpretations of angels, where they're like these little guys with wings, I mean the terrifyingly beautiful angels that are depicted like in Ezekiel's vision and in other places in the Bible too, where you have in Ezekiel's vision, you have the many-eyed figure with heads of humans and goats. That's what I mean by an angel, because that's what people actually believed angels were. No one believed angels were little people with wings. That's a modernist interpretation. So what I mean is that Paul believed that we will inherit this type of body. But this type of body isn't like immaterial. It has like physicality in a sense, right? So Paul doesn't think that we will inherit these like spiritual bodies in the way that we might understand spiritual. These bodies still have a sort of physicality, but it's not matter in the way that we understand matter. Like it's not like my cup, right? It's not like my cup. It's not that type of matter. It's like an element of physicality, but like less dense in a sense. It's really weird. But this was the belief that Paul had, if you read. And so when Paul talks about the difference between the spiritual and the celestial body, he's specifically drawing a distinction between the flesh that we have, fleshy skin, right? And the body that we will inherit. Because angels don't have flesh. Angels have a spiritual body. Stars have a spiritual body. Principalities have a spiritual body of some sort. So, Paul's point, and this is where the Gnosticism comes in, flesh will not enter the kingdom of heaven. It's an exact quote from 1 Corinthians 15. Flesh will not enter the kingdom of heaven. Paul's very clear. We, in this body, we're not going to be in heaven like this. That's not what heaven is. You're in Hegel's words, you're incorporating picture thinking, and picture thinking is a sign of primitive cognition. It's a sign of an inability to endure mystery. It's a sign of infantile theology. It's cringe. It's not. It doesn't work. This is picture thinking. Our bodies in heaven are not going to be like flesh. They're going to be spiritual bodies. They're going to be like the angels. They'll be physical, right? They'll be physical in a sense, but they won't be like matter. Again, matter like this, and they won't be fleshy. So this is what Paul means by the difference between spiritual and celestial. I made this video because I just finished writing a section in my book where I kind of lambast into this author named Randy Alcorn, who wrote this 600-page book on heaven in 2004. And he it's just so filled to the brim with everything I just despise about these about like modernist readings into the Bible. It's talking about heaven and the eschaton it's going to have like mountains and it's going to have like houses and we'll go out and meet our neighbors. It's not at all what's in the Bible. It's just like complete modernist picture thinking read into the Bible. It's disgusting. It's terrible. And Alcorn does this thing where he says that, well, what Paul meant was that, well, we're going to have our bodies, right? They're just like not going to be in the terrestrial world. So they're not terrestrial bodies for that reason. No, that's not what Paul meant at all. It's so bad. I mean, like literally every biblical scholar recognizes this. Every biblical scholar, critical and otherwise. It's just like it's a non-argument that Paul is some sort of like modernist post-enlightenment Christian who has a completely clearly laid out eschatology and clearly laid out metaphysics where there's no mystery, there's no mysticality. No, Paul is a very mystical thinker. When you look at Gnostic text, like the Pseudo-Gospel of Thomas, like the Gnostic text that Irenaeus responded to, these people based themselves off of Paul. They didn't just make this stuff out of nowhere. Sure, they did as well rely on other traditions of the time from apocalyptic literature, but they were basing themselves off Pauline and Johannine tradition, the Gospel of John. It's also another very Gnostic text in some sense. So when we think about what Paul meant, when we think about how to read the Bible, we can't just input our picture thinking, our post-enlightenment brains into the Bible. We do this so much. We input our rationalism. We input this presupposition that Second Temple Judaism, for some reason, would have the same like understanding of cosmology, the same understanding of what matter is. It's just mind-numbingly ignorant when people do this. And it's terrible. We should stop doing it. And that's my rant for today. I was just like really going at Randy Alcorn. I mean, I was being fair to him too. I mean, dude, if you're gonna write a 600-page book on heaven, I mean, know what the heck you're talking about. I mean, come on, like, yeah, it's just whatever. But yeah, no, I just wanted to lay that out because I think that this distinction should not be like a sign of worry. It should be a sign of awe-inspiring, kind of how angels in the Bible are awe-inspiring. They're terrifyingly beautiful. It's a beauty that is so divine, so alien to what we're used to in this world that it just strikes us as terrifying and uncanny, because it is. Because we don't have beauty in this world like that. Because this world is not the end of creation. The creation was not made for this world. If you read Paul's writings, there's differences between creation and cosmos. Cosmos is this world. When Paul talks about creation, he doesn't mean this world only. He means the entire scope of the teleology that God has set out for us. And that's the important thing to note, is that this is why the spiritual body distinction is so prevalent, and why Paul takes so much time laying it out. And it, after, I would say that it affects all of his eschatology from writing 1 Corinthians onwards, right? It's because Paul has a very teleological view, a very Orthodox Christian view, might I add, of the world. Creation is not the end. Well, sorry, this cosmos is not the end. This terrestrial realm, this finite world is not the end. I wouldn't say it's an illusion. That's much more Gnostic and more originist than I'm trying to get to. But I will say that it's not the end. It's not the purpose that God has set out for us. It's a intermediary stage. And this intermediary stage might seem like the beginning, but it's only the kind of proto-beginning, because the real beginning is going to happen when all are justified in the eschaton. That's when the true beginning happens. That's when all of creation is revealed. It's when all of creation is made unified with its purpose that was ordained since the beginning of time. And that is why Paul's spiritual and celestial body distinction is so awe-inspiring, so wonderful, and why I'm so glad that it happens to be in 1 Corinthians 15, my favorite chapter in the whole Bible, for a number of reasons. One of them is this. So I think that's going to do it for today. I am happy with Paul's distinction. I think that it should not be a sign of distress. It should not be a sign of we have to hide this. This is Gnostic. This is blah. No, this is what God intended. I mean, if you believe Scripture is divinely inspired, and this is what God intended. Sure, we can reject second Judaism, Second Temple Judaism cosmology, right? Yeah, okay, stars aren't angels. That's fine. God isn't sitting on a throne somewhere out in space like the Quran depicts, and Second Temple Judaism to some extent holds as well. Yeah, okay, that's fine. But we don't need to reject things that surpass just the cultural standard of the time, things that seem to be deeper, have a divine mystery in them. And that's what I think that this distinction, the spiritual, celestial distinction, has. It's deeper than just the culture of the time. It's a divine mystery. And if we parrot Hebrews, divine mystery, set to be revealed. A divine mystery since the beginning of time, set to be revealed through Jesus Christ. So that's going to do it for the video. Go ahead and subscribe, like the video, and stay tuned for more discussions on biblical passages probably. So